Hi, everyone. How are you? It's good to be with you again. And today we're going to be discussing the lesson I had yesterday with the grandchildren that pertains and is about next Sunday's gospel, January 15th. And what I wanted to emphasize to the children that we're starting a new time in the liturgical calendar. And what are we returning to? An ordinary time, and for them to look for the color green when they go to church. So that's also something for younger children, to get them used to the colors. And it's almost like fun. We can look and see what's going to be happening on Sunday. So I wanted to make sure after our opening prayer that we did that. And it was interesting. Let me just backtrack a minute. When we did do our opening prayer, we did pray for people who play football. I thought that was very interesting. And I think the whole thing that happened with this player from the Buffalo Bills, it touched the kids a lot because their friends play. I think it put a little bit of nervousness, anxiety for them. So the fact that they not only prayed for him yesterday, but they've been praying for him with the rest of the world made them feel very, very good. And I'll even talk about it later because it came up at another time. So we talked about ordinary time, and we began the lesson with when do you feel God's presence the most? And we had a nice conversation about that. It'd be a little difficult to talk to little children about, but you might want to ask younger children, when do you feel loved? When do you feel someone loves you? Keep it, that way. So when you get to the older children, they know already that, God is love. But when do you feel that presence, not just of love from your family, but you feel another kind of presence from God? So you want to help them develop now spiritually. Now we're on another realm, right? Into another realm. So we had a nice conversation and we talked about prayer again. And when do you feel God? When do you feel God's presence? And they talked about finding God in church. Well, I think that's pretty, what you would expect. But they find God, they can see God now with other people and other people's actions. They felt it again, going back to the player from the Buffalo Bills, the fact that the whole country seemed to be praying for him, that made them very communal. They felt very communal about that, but they felt that this was something that they could feel the presence of God working through these people who were praying. And I thought that was really quite an observance for them. And I was happy to hear that they're, seeing beyond their own little world. Now God is present in the rest of the world as well. And this was a big thing for them. This would remind me to say to you also, take a look at current events. Some of the good things that are happening in the world, if you hopefully you can find some, but there are plenty of good people going on, who are doing wonderful things. It may not be, national news, but maybe even something local, but to be aware of what's happening. Something like this, certainly kids are aware of and they're talking about it. So I was glad to see that they had made that step coming out of, from me and my world to, I see where God is present to other people and through other people. That was a big lesson, I thought. So we talked about that. And then we, because this coming up gospel has to do with the baptism of Jesus again. It's not considered to be the feast of the baptism of Jesus. We usually have that, but because Christmas and New Year's fell on the days of the week that they did, we actually would celebrate, the church would celebrate it the day after, I believe, last week, the 9th of January. Yeah, after the 8th. So on Monday. So yesterday. But for our purposes, this coming Sunday is not that we're celebrating the feast of baptism of Jesus. It just so happens that the gospel is about the baptism of Jesus. So I wanted to really emphasize the whole idea of baptism. We did the lesson we got through, but to me, I really wanted to emphasize it. Last year, we did it when the children were a year younger, obviously, but it was more something you would do for younger children you can do. When you talk about baptism, you want to talk about the children's baptism. Certainly, I'm sure there are videos you can share and see them. That the candle, if there is a candle, I'm sure they have it somewhere. Ask the parents to bring out the baptismal stuff. Their what they wore and to explain it. They need that. Or, if you even have a doll, sometimes, I've seen that done. We have a doll and you pretend to baptize it. But for the venture students, which would be fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, and this is where the twins belong. Last week, not this week, but last week's lesson had a baptismal prayer service, which I wanted to use. And we ended up the lesson using that. And I just wanted to again emphasize what this was, how this was marked the beginning of Jesus's ministry. And what is ministry? What does that mean? What was Jesus called to come to do? And John the Baptist, certainly his role in all of this. So what I did, I lit a candle. We had a candle at the table. And I said, we're going to save that. We're not going to light it till this is time at the end. And I may have shown this to you before. I'm not sure. But I'm going to show it to you again anyway, because it's important. It's very special to myself and to my family. When my first grandchild was on his way, my daughter-in-law had a baby shower. And one of the gifts I gave her was a baptismal shell. And with the intent that when the baby was going to be baptized, they would use this baptismal shell for the water and baptize him with that. It became not just for him, but for every grandchild in the family who was baptized was going to use this baptismal shell. And what they did do on the box, okay, all the grandchildren's, name and the date of their baptism is on this box. So there's absolutely no excuse where I can't say, oh, Tommy, on January 14th, which is coming up, send him a text and say, happy baptism day. And I've done that with my own children over the years. And I mentioned it to Tommy last night because what I did, not just with the twins who I teach, but the other children in the family who are all over the place, I actually went to their rooms and said, I want you to see this. You may know about it, maybe you don't. I showed them the box, but this brought them in a little bit, but I wanted them to know they shared in this very special, not only community within their family, but the larger church as well. So what I did with this, because the prayer service called for blessing of yourself, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, with water. So I'll put some water in here. Okay, we ask God to bless it, and just a little bit of water. And what they would do at one point, they were invited, we all were invited to dip our fingers in the water and bless ourselves in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. I told them that when you walk into church and there's a water font, and you go to it and you do that, it's to remind us of our baptism. And of course, we got into the Holy Spirit, not the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity, because that was a vocabulary phrase and word for this week for that age group. So even with younger children, this was kind of a little more advanced kind of prayer service for this age appropriate for the fifth grade. But what I would do, you can write your own. You can do something that would incorporate, using water, using the symbols, showing them. And I saw with the children, the grandchildren, we did it last year for the feast of the baptism of Jesus. We talked about baptism. We took out all those things, but they've developed. And that was nice to see. They're more concerned about the sacrament of, it's not like, oh, here's the dress, here's the candle. That's their own development. And that's what will happen. And again, that's the beauty of the repetition of the liturgical year, that you're able to see them grow through the gospel as well. So you can, design your own little prayer service. It doesn't take a lot, but to help them do that. And I think yesterday they were very touched, and they're like, Grandma, can we touch it? I said, yes, you can touch it, but you have to be so careful. And of course, the questions, well, what if we broke it? Well, what do you think? How do you think I would feel? No, that was their question. So they were very gentle. Oh my God, you think what was in the house? So things like this, again, you're passing on a family tradition. You're incorporating anything that pulls people together in the family, the children, makes them feel part of something bigger than themselves. That's especially important for the younger children. Well, for everyone for that matter, but the sense of belonging. for belonging to something outside of, and to be loved by people, not just your family, but people outside. So as you grow older, you start with your immediate family, but as you grow older, you can introduce them to the community and the extended family, to the church, and to know that we all belong to God. So that was yesterday, and it was really interesting, like I said, to watch their own spiritual development. We ended the lesson with I came across a video I watched, and it was about it's Jesus getting baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist. And there was a song that went with it, and there were lyrics. I always like to make sure there's lyrics so the children can follow it, and they hop right on it. They do it. And it was only like a 2.5 minute kind of a thing, but it kind of reinforced everything that we had just learned. And also to talk about, now that you've been baptized, this is not just a nice thing to do. This is calling you into discipleship. And what does that mean? And, what can they do? What can we do? What can we do as a family? How should we be with each other? How should we be with each other at school? What does it mean to be a disciple, and to keep an eye on that, keep a check on that? So that was yesterday. It was a nice lesson. We covered a lot yesterday because, like I said, I was really wanted to do that prayer service. They didn't seem to mind it at all. They were fine. And a lot of discussion going on, which is what you really want, to be able to listen. And we did have a little lesson on listening, that, they're just trying to talk over each other once in a while. We've got to listen to what your sister's saying, what your brother's saying. We have to really listen hard. So again, it was a pretty good lesson, I thought. I think they enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And if you have any ideas about and using anything in your family in terms of helping the catechetical process, certainly email me. I'd love to hear from you. And I just wanted to share what we did. I'm sure many of you do many wonderful things, and it would really be nice as a community of catechists to hear what everybody does and how to share that. So have a good week. I won't be on next week, I don't believe, because Monday is a holiday. It's Martin Luther King Day. I'm not going to meet with the children. So I won't be recording next Tuesday, but I will be certainly the following week. Children have their materials for next week, and we will go over them, but I'm not doing an actual lesson. I think they're going away or whatever. So it works out. And I try to keep in schedule with what the schools are doing anyway, and with what the parish program is doing. So they certainly aren't having classes next Monday, so I won't. Unless they ask for it. If they do, then that's fine. Most likely they'll be busy doing something. So have a good 2 weeks, and I'll see you then. Take care. God bless.